Let us start 7th meeting of Committee A. Good morning, colleagues and ladies and gentlemen. It will be a very long day. Our bureau worked very hard to make your journey less painful, as smooth as possible. Let us begin. First, before we take up the first item of today, I would like to adopt draft of the third report of Committee A. I shall therefore give the floor to Madam Rapporteur, Dr. Walai-Pong, who will lead the report in question. Madam Rapporteur, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Third report of Committee A. Committee A held its third, fourth, and fifth meetings on 24th and 25th May 2022, chaired by Dr. Hiroki Nakatangi from Japan, Dr. Mariam Abdul Richard from Trinidad Tobago, and Dr. Tama Gabunia from Georgia. It was decided to recommend to the 75th World Health Assembly the adoption of the attached two decisions and two resolutions relating to the following agenda item. Pillar 4, more effective and efficient WHO providing better support to countries. Item 13, sustainable financings, report of the working group. One decision entitled Sustainable Financing. Pillar 2, 1 billion more people better protected from health emergencies. Item 16, Public Health Emergency Preparedness and Response. 16.2, strengthening WHO preparedness for and response to health emergency. One decision, one resolution entitled Strengthening Health Emergency Preparedness and Response in Cities and Urban Settings. One resolution entitled Strengthening Clinical Trials to provide high-quality evidence on health interventions and to improve research quality and coordination. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Rapporteur. Thank you very much, Madam Rapporteur. I understand that our committee is willing to adopt this report as read out. Are there any objections? I see none. Therefore, the report is adopted. Thank you very much. Now we will take up the agenda item 16, Public Health Emergencies, Preparedness and Response, under Pillar 2, 1 billion more people better protected from health emergencies. Grouping of sub-items, 6.1, the Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee for the World Health Organization Health Emergency Program, and 16.3, WHO's work in health emergencies. The relevant documents are A74/16, A74/10 Lib 1, and A74/47. Under sub-item 16.3, we will also consider the draft resolutions contained in conference papers A75/A/conf/6 and A75/A/conf/8. Excuse me, I will repeat. A75/8/conf/8. There is two conference papers, Conference Paper 6 and Conference Paper 8. Now I am coming to very important points to put forward the rule of the game of ordinary debates of today. I trust that white paper on this matter has been well received by member states. It outlines my proposed way forward to ensure a clear and ordinary consideration of these items, including the draft resolutions. This proposal has been the subject of extensive informal consultations. My understanding is that it has the full support of those most closely involved, as well as support of member states generally. These efforts and this support is greatly appreciated. Accordingly, as set out in the white paper, I propose as follows. I would open the floor for statements by member states on items 16.1 and 60.3. After all members wishing to speak on these items have taken the floor, we would consider the draft resolutions through two speakers, two separate back-to-back roll call votes as follows. A roll call vote would first be conducted on the draft resolution contained in document A75/A/conf/6. Immediately after, another roll call vote would be conducted on the draft resolution contained in document A75/A/conf/8. It would be further understood that no amendments would be proposed to the text of either draft resolution, and no procedural motions or proposals would be moved during the consideration of the draft resolutions. Furthermore, I repeat all, member states could offer explanations of vote of no more than 3 minutes only after both votes have been completed. So that is the package of the rule of the game today. May I take it that my proposal is agreeable to the committee? This is what we are going to do today. Rule of the game, I said. May I take it that my proposal is agreed by the committee? I see no objection. Therefore, it is agreed. Thank you very much. Agreed. I would like to once again express my appreciation for the cooperation received in the efforts made to come to an agreed arrangement. As your chair, I count on your support in keeping this important and welcome decision. Now, permit me to address the speaking opportunities for member states for clarity as this morning. We will be discussing more than just these two conference papers with the two draft resolutions. We will also be hearing an important report of the IOAC, and there may be other matters under items 16.1 and 16.3 that delegations may wish to further address. Accordingly, in order to make sure that we allow time for fair consideration of all items, we should proceed as follows. We would first hear from the chair of the IOAC, Independent Oversight Advisory Committee for the WHO Health Emergency Program. Then, having heard the important IOAC report, I would open the floor for comments on any aspect of the issues under item 16.1 and 6.3, including course reactions to the IOAC report. As always, national statement on these items should not exceed 3 minutes. Group statements should not exceed 4 minutes. Again, I kindly remind delegations that I will be very strict about time limits. I would like to be fair for everyone. After these general comments on any aspect of items 16.1 and 6.3, we will return to the draft resolutions. Accordingly, at this time, there will be opportunity for statements addressing the two proposed resolutions. So that is your second opportunity. In this second statement, we should proceed as follows. The floor first be given to Ukraine, who would speak on behalf of the co-sponsors on the draft resolution contained in document A75/A-conf/6 for maximum of 4 minutes. The floor would then be given to Russian Federation, who would speak on behalf of the co-sponsors of the draft resolutions contained in document A75/A/conf/8, also for maximum of 4 minutes. Then, floor would be open to any other member states wishing to speak. National statement should not exceed 3 minutes. Group statements should not exceed 4 minutes. After all member states wishing to speak on the draft resolutions have made their statements, the draft resolutions would then be considered through 2 separate back-to-back votes, in accordance with the decision we have just taken that was set out in the white paper. I will provide opportunity for observers, international organizations, and non-state actors in official relations, as well as the Secretariat, to speak after the explanation of both. Of course, delegation wishing to exercise the right of reply will have the opportunity to do so at the end of the day, as decided for this Assembly session. I thank the committee for their understanding for this matter of directing the discussion. Thank you again. I think I am clear enough. Therefore, I would like to proceed. First, as I said, I would like to invite the chair of Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee for the WHO Health Emergency Program, Dr. Felicity Harvey, to make some introductory remarks. Dr. Harvey, floor is yours.
Thank you, President, Mr. Chairman. Honourable Ministers, Excellencies, Heads of Delegation, Directors General and distinguished colleagues. I am honoured to present document A7516 to the World Health Assembly on behalf of the Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee for the WHO Health Emergencies Programme, IOAC. This is the 10th report of the committee, which reviews the annual progress of WHO's work in health emergencies. Since the WHO Health Emergencies Programme was established in 2016, IOAC has been providing independent scrutiny and oversight of WHO's work on outbreaks and emergencies within the terms of our mandate, guiding the activities of the WHO programme, advising the Director General and providing reports to Member States. As of the 15th of February 2022, WHO was responding to a total of 83 graded emergencies, of which 10 were graded at level 3. Since submitting our report, IOAC has also been briefed on the crisis in Ukraine, with high impact on health and WHO's work on health emergencies. The committee is deeply concerned by the ongoing attacks on healthcare personnel and facilities and their disastrous consequences. We commend the WHO for their close coordination with key stakeholders in Ukraine and the life-saving interventions that the organisation is providing across the country. The committee will continue to monitor this work closely. The committee reviewed documents and interviewed key WHO staff to develop the recommendations for this report. After drafting it, we continued to conduct interviews with WHO staff, external partners, to triangulate our findings. Based on the document review and the internal and external interviews, our report describes the progress of WHO's work in emergencies, including COVID-19, and also highlights persistent issues that the committee has observed since its establishment in 2016 that should be addressed as a matter of urgency. We would like to draw your attention to those persistent gaps that must be filled to enable the WHE programme to lead WHO's emergency work. First, roles and responsibilities in emergencies of the major offices, the accountability framework, and reporting lines of functions supporting emergency management. Through our assessment, we identified internal power dynamics as an obstacle to clarifying accountabilities and lines of authority between the WHE programme and the wider organisation, as well as between the three levels of the organisation. We recommend that the Global Policy Group review current delegations of authority and the accountability framework for emergencies management based on the one programme principle. Moreover, we recommend that regional emergency directors be recruited jointly by and have dual reporting lines to both the regional directors and the WHE programme executive director. Second, organisational structure and systems to support WHO's work on emergencies. The committee found that internal systems can be fragmented, ambiguous and duplicative. We reiterate that sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment (SEAH) investigations should be handled differently from internal oversight services (IOS) investigations or other types of misconduct. Also in regional offices, a focal person for supporting functions and systems with responsibility for scrutinising misconduct in the respective region should be appointed by the DG. Additionally, centralised functions supporting the WHE programme, such as human resources, security, resource mobilisation, etc., should develop key performance indicators to track their impact on WHO emergency operations, and the dual reporting lines to WHE programme managers and divisional heads should be formalised, also at regional level. Third, on human resources capacity and management to ensure the organisation is equipped and resourced to lead emergency responses. The committee is deeply concerned that although WHO country offices' performance has improved, they are still lacking the required human and financial resources to build and sustain capacity, particularly for emergency operations in fragile contexts. Vacant posts for WHO representatives and WHE programme staff in country must be filled. On a positive note, during the pandemic, we observed the value in having a health emergency programme embedded within WHO, playing a leading role in coordinating an organisational-wide response. We recommend maintaining and increasing the WHE programme's core capacities, including social scientists and gender equity experts. In the future, standard operating procedures, SOPs, for timely internal surge capacity would also help to leverage in-house expertise. Fourthly, on finance. The committee continues to observe a chronic shortage of flexible and sustainable financing in the WHE programme and the WHO's work on emergencies. And we wish to congratulate the Working Group on Sustainable Financing for their work and applaud Member States for approving the draft decision in Document A75-9. Increasing assessed contributions will have a transformative effect and strengthen the authority of WHO. However, we reiterate that the proportion of WHO core flexible funding to the WHE programme and for financing preparedness activities should be increased. Fifthly, on international health regulations and country preparedness. We found that investment for preparedness is chronically low at national and international levels and for the WHE programme, and we recognise the difficulties WHO faces raising funds to support countries with preparedness activities. We recommend that Member States agree on a targeted revision of the IHR, in particular for the risk assessment and a graded approach to fake declarations. And additionally, the committee urges Member States to consider adopting IHR compliance measures under a treaty, convention or instrument for pandemic preparedness and response. Sixthly, the committee recognises WHO's leadership role in the global response to COVID-19. This was reaffirmed through interviews with UN partners who shared positive comments on WHO's leadership. However, also noted was that there may be more opportunities available for leveraging UN and other partners to amplify messages on prevention, testing and treatment for COVID-19. We recommend that the Secretariat continue to provide technical guidance and support to Member States in close collaboration with partners. Also, we warmly welcome the establishment of new initiatives, such as the WHO Hub for Pandemic and Epidemic Intelligence in Berlin, the WHO BioHub system, and the Global Biomanufacturing Workforce Training Hub. Finally, the committee welcomes the paper put forward by the Director General on strengthening the global architecture for health emergency preparedness, response and resilience. We commend the Secretariat and Member States for the effort and extensive consultation process. IOC believes that many of the biggest failings in the global response to COVID-19 are largely in domains beyond the mandate of WHO, particularly political challenges, and these must be reviewed. This suggests that the required reforms must likewise go beyond WHO's remit and look at the wider architecture. We recommend a strengthened WHO must be at the centre of the architecture, with strong links between governance and finance and rooted in the principles of equity, inclusivity and coherence. We believe that more specificity on how to empower and strengthen WHO within wider reforms is essential. Honourable Ministers, Excellencies, Heads of Delegation, distinguished colleagues, in conclusion, the committee has witnessed WHO become a more reliable and competent partner to governments, UN entities, health cluster members, NGOs and donors throughout the pandemic. WHO has maintained and strengthened its leadership position in global health emergencies throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. The committee wishes to underline the fact that the pandemic is not over. There is more work to do. We are deeply concerned by the discrepancy between well-proven measures to control COVID-19 and the actions taken by decision makers. The committee will continue to hold WHO accountable and to deliver on our mandate, and we welcome the introduction by the Director General's Office of the implementation tracker to monitor the progress of recommendations. But Member States and partners must play their part as well. Ensure that WHO is equipped with sustainable and flexible funding, as you have just agreed, and that WHO is granted the global authority to carry out its work effectively. We renew our commitment to continue delivering on our mandate and to support WHO to play a central role in the global health architecture for pandemic preparedness and response. In presenting this report, the committee would like to thank the WHE programme and WHO staff who are working tirelessly to promote health, keep the world safe and serve the vulnerable. But we also wish to pay tribute to the health workers and partners around the world working to bring the pandemic to an end, to those promoting health and providing care in humanitarian crises, and to those who have lost lives from COVID or other ongoing emergencies. On behalf of IOAC, Mr. President, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harvey, for your remarks highlighting essential elements of your very important report. On behalf of the committee, we thank you. And through you, your membership, and also your able secretariat. Thank you very much. Now, I recognize that Director General is with us. Director General, would you like to take the floor?
Thank you, Chair. Um, I thank the IOSC for its work over the past year, and since it was established in 2016. I know IOSC has been working hard to provide oversight and monitoring, and to offer advice on our work related to health emergencies, and to keep us on our toes. The current IOSC term is coming to an end, and we will be renewing it after the World Health Assembly for another 2 years, from 2022 to 2024. I offer my sincere thanks to the co-chairs, Dr. Felicity Harvey and Dr. Geeta Gupta, who are stepping down as co-chairs. Thank you so much, Felicity. Please accept my greatest respect and appreciation. Thank you so much again. And I offer a warm welcome to the new chair, Professor Walid Amar, who brings great insight into WHO and emergency work. Professor Amar will assume the position immediately after this assembly, and I would like you to welcome him. Shukran Jazilan, Professor, for accepting the challenge. I have also asked Dr. Samba So to join the IOSC. Dr. So has been serving as one of my special envoys on COVID-19 preparedness and response since February 2020, and is the former Minister of Health of Mali. And he is now the Director General of the Center for Vaccine Development in Mali. And I would really appreciate it again if you could welcome Dr. Samba So. This is a critical moment in history for global health emergencies, and I will look forward to continuing our close work with the IOSC. Thank you so much. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Director General. Now, we have heard from the chair of the IOSC. I will give the floor to the member states to make any general interventions of any aspect of item 60.1 and 60.3. I will remind once again that 2 conference papers, you have another opportunity to speak. Those who would like to speak, please show your placard. Please keep on showing the placard. Thank you. I took note few, so please put like this for the time being, and so that Secretariat is going to take notes. And in the middle, I think I will read out the number of delegates who wish to speak to make sure that no one is missing. So please keep a placard like this, okay? There are 3 initial speakers. First, Senegal, on behalf of member states of the African region, followed by Sudan, on behalf of Eastern Mediterranean regions, and France, on behalf of member states in European Union. Therefore, may I invite first Senegal, followed by Sudan and France, and each will speak 4 minutes. And the time will be strictly kept. Thank you very much. May I invite Senegal to start. Senegal, you have the floor.
Déclaration africaine.
African statement on the agenda item on public health emergencies, preparedness and response. On agenda item 16.1 and 16.3, Senegal is pleased to deliver the statement on behalf of the 47 member states of the African region on agenda items 16.1 and 16.3. The African region welcomes the report by the Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee, the IOAC, presented by the Director General. We welcome the efforts made by WHO to respond to the pandemic, as well as over 81 graded emergencies for other conditions. We also thank the committee for conducting their oversight role diligently, resulting in recommendations as outlined in the IOAC report, and the confidence that they have expressed in WHO leading emergencies. The IOAC have presented a comprehensive report. The African region would like to highlight key strategic areas of importance to our region. The weaknesses in the pandemic preparedness and response is influenced principally by inadequate financing for emergency response program within WHO and member states. And the fact that disparities in the financial situation of states are not taken into account. We support the recommendation for sustainable flexible funding as agreed to by the Working Group on Sustainable Financing to ensure that WHO at all three levels of the organization is better equipped to assess member states when required. The African region fully supports a strong, deliberate, continued focus on equity, multilateralism and strengthened WHO with a leading and coordinating role in the global health architecture on pandemic preparedness and response. The African region supports the recommendation of the IOAC, which affirms the need for the WHO to play a central role, as opposed to an intermediary one, on issues of public health emergencies of international concern. The African region further commends the role of WHO within health emergencies. Over the reference period covered by the Director General's report, WHO intervened in various emergency situations, 78% of which have occurred in the African region, in terms of acute global emergencies, and 59% for protected emergencies. The situation is owed at a time when many countries in the region are facing health challenges, in particular the rising birth of NCDs. The African region applauds the leadership of WHO in coordinating the international response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It notes with concern the gaps in the management of the pandemic, with an acute imbalance in terms of access to vaccines against COVID-19. Some member states being left behind, while others have a very high level of vaccination coverage. It is therefore imperative to remove obstacles to the local production of vaccines, as well as to ensure the transfer of effective technology and know-how. The African region notes the gaps identified in the implementation of IHR and reaffirms in this regard the more effective multisectoral, multidisciplinary and transnational collaboration on preparedness and response. In conclusion, the African region emphasizes the need to strengthen surveillance and response systems to prevent and respond to public health emergencies. It is also important to build strong and resilient health systems that can provide essential healthcare and ensure continuity of care services during health emergencies. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Senegal. Next speaker is Sudan, followed by France, and then Brazil. Sudan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chair, Your Excellencies, Director General, the member states of the Eastern Mediterranean region acknowledge the efforts involved in compiling the reports presented today, including that of the Independent Oversight Advisory Committee. The observation and recommendations made underscore persistent gaps in our collective capacities to prevent, prepare for, detect, and respond to health threats. The COVID-19 pandemic has dominated much of the past 2.5 years, and rightly so. But other emergency needs and risks are also soaring in the context of climate change, conflict, and the increasing frequency and severity of natural disasters. Over 292 million people need humanitarian assistance worldwide, representing an astonishing 74% increase since January 2020. The Eastern Mediterranean region is perhaps the most severely affected of any WHO region. 12 of our 22 members have more form of ongoing conflict. 35% of the humanitarian burden is within our region. We witnessed 5 of the world's 10 largest natural disasters in 2021. 26 of 28 major outbreaks occurred in fragile settings, and food insecurity and malnutrition are rapidly expanding. In this context, we welcome the report's recommendations, especially those pertaining to strengthening emergency workforce capacity, steadfastly applying lessons learned from the COVID-19 pandemic, and ensuring predictable, sustainable investment in preparedness. We note the recommendations related to WHO role in governing the response to future pandemic and support the central role WHO must play within the global health architecture. As COVID-19 has reinforced, solidarity is the way forward, and we subscribe to a more collaborative, systemic, and transparent approach to managing health emergencies. However, pandemics do not have a blanket impact worldwide. Differing country contexts call for tailored response. We therefore call on WHO to help strengthen national emergency management capacities, including developing guidance for member state equivalents of the emergency response framework. We are encouraged by recent initiatives, including the WHO BioHub system and WHO Hub for Pandemic and Epidemic Intelligence, which not only provide a platform for multilateralism and global interconnectedness, but also promote mutual accountability and trust. In the same vein, we applaud the work of the Tripartite Plus on mainstreaming the One Health approach to detect and prevent zoonotic threats. While success has been noted in response to COVID-19 and other emergencies, we still face numerous obstacles. Unless these challenges are tackled through the principles of solidarity and equity, we will continue to fall short of our shared pursuit, saving life and guaranteeing human dignity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is France.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chairman. Director General, Rapporteur, dear colleagues. And I have the honor of speaking on behalf of the European Union, its member states, the Republic of North Macedonia, Montenegro and Albania, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and the Republic of Moldova, who also associate themselves with this statement. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of the staff involved in implementing the Emergencies Programme for their efforts. Your workload has been very, very heavy, because not only have you had to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, but you've also had to respond to more than 80 variable emergencies in all regions of the world. And the European Union expresses its full support for the staff at the 3 levels of the organization. In emergencies, this is operational importance to the WHO, and it plays a very key role for solidarity for the world and to ensure the legitimacy of the organization. Chairman, wars and conflicts always have direct and indirect negative consequences on the health of the people affected, both mentally and physically, and forced displacement, lack of access to food, lack of protection, restrictions on movement and attacks on healthcare facilities, and a lack of response of humanitarian and international humanitarian law continue to make the situation worse. And we believe that WHO should continue to play a role in monitoring and reporting on attacks on healthcare facilities and healthcare workers. We'd also like to underscore the importance of mental health of workers in crises, and it's important to have safe working conditions for healthcare workers. We welcome the implementation and mainstreaming of policies to combat sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment in all of the WHO's activities, and in particular in emergency contexts. We support the call of the IOAOC to implement urgently the recommendations issued last year designed to mainstream security management and the prevention of sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment in a new unified framework, clarifying the roles and responsibilities of everybody in headquarters, in regional offices and in country offices is vital to develop a culture of zero tolerance for abuse. And once again, the European Union wishes to underscore its approach, which is one of zero tolerance of all forms of misconduct. We take note of the 10th report of the IAOC, and we encourage the management teams at WHO to accelerate the implementation of all of their recommendations. And as the report says, the only way of WHO becoming a leader in responding to emergencies is to work collectively with a solid management team with shared responsibilities in a culture of mutual trust. And for WHO to play that very important role, it needs more human and financial resources, and we urge member states to step up their financial contributions to the contingency fund for emergencies. Director General, we are grateful for the report on the emergency situation in Ukraine and the international risks linked to that and the response that's being made. It's a remarkable effort on the part of these teams in very precarious and difficult situations. Thank you very much indeed. The Ukrainian healthcare system faces numerous challenges with serious consequences for mental and children's health, for people touched by infectious diseases such as HIV, AIDS, and the mental health of children, and for dealing with NCDs, particularly for the elderly. The aggression is making it more likely for transmissible diseases to spread, and the risk of sexual violence is also exacerbated, and the risk of food insecurity and indeed chemical and nuclear disasters. The EU and its 27 member states strongly condemn the fact that a permanent member of the UN Security Council and a member of the WHO Executive Board is clearly violating the basic principles of the UN Charter and the WHO Constitution. To protect peace, security and health in the region, we call upon Russia to stop immediately its war of aggression in Ukraine, including attacks on healthcare facilities, and to respect its responsibilities under international law.
The exceeding time, please. Thank you very much. Thank you for, please accept my apologies, but we are following exact rules applied for everybody. I'm sorry for that. I have 24 more speakers on the list. I would like to make sure at this time that no one who would like to speak left. I read the list of the speakers: Brazil, Poland, Portugal, Philippines, Thailand, Australia, Belarus, Uruguay, Ukraine, Bangladesh, Russian Federation, United Kingdom, Kyrgyzstan, United States of America, Barbados, Islamic Republic of Iran, Canada, Ethiopia, Spain, China, India, Jamaica, Singapore, Indonesia, Republic of Korea, Argentina, Venezuela. So these are lists. Those who would like to speak, would you mind to come forward? That will be more straightforward. Would you mind to come forward to register to my secretariat? I recognize Colombia and Nicaragua. Colombia and Nicaragua are added. Ethiopia is on the list. So those who are missing, please come forward.
And Germany.
Togo and Germany. Togo and Germany. Togo and Germany. So those are not listed and voiced. Please come forward within next 10 minutes. Then the list is closed. So you have 10 minutes. Let us start again. The following following order: Brazil, Portugal, Brazil, Poland, Portugal, Philippines, this order. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues. We're going to speak on item 16.1, the report of the Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee for the WHO Health Emergencies Program. Brazil takes note of the recommendations and thanks the IOAC for the important work in these challenging times. As we recognize the qualities and relevance of conclusions and recommendations, we would like to comment on some specific topics. On para 33, on progress related to COVID-19 therapeutics, diagnostics, and vaccines for equitable access and the ACT Accelerator, the report seems to put excessive stress on the importance of regulatory aspects and do not highlight accordingly the difficulties that are presented by high prices, lack of room for negotiation, and other obstacles many countries face and continue to face in securing health countermeasures. On para 34, in the same sense, the report also looks imbalanced when it highlights especially the in-country bottlenecks as reasons for difficulties for delivery. Countries have strived in many occasions to meet demands, many of them excessive or unjustified. The nature of these demands should also be considered by the IOAC. On para 35, the report affirms that deadly variants emerged in under-resourced countries. What seems to be a controversial statement, for the appearance of new variants can occur anywhere. Given the limited time available for this intervention, and as we recognize and support the independent nature of the committee, we would like to further engage with the IOAC to better understand the rationale of some conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Poland, followed by Portugal. Poland, you have the floor.
Very much, Chair. Poland fully aligns with the statement made by France on behalf of the EU and its member states. First of all, let me take this opportunity to express my appreciation to the WHO work in health emergencies. Thank you for all your hard work and commitment. COVID-19 pandemic has not finished yet, and we have already another war just across our border. Let me say this loud and clear. Russian invasion on Ukraine is absolutely unjustified. Poland fully condemns the Russian Federation for its attack on Ukraine and its health infrastructure. Around 200 attacks have been carried out on the healthcare facilities in Ukraine since the beginning of the Russian invasion. This is unacceptable. We also condemn Russia's false narrative on this war and spreading misinformation. Let's be honest, what we are witnessing in Ukraine is genocide. Russian invasion on Ukraine is not only a violation of international law and rules of United Nations, including WHO. It has also a direct and severe impact on the public health in Ukraine. This war affects also neighboring countries. Almost 3.5 million of Ukrainian refugees came to Poland in the last 3 months. Every single Ukrainian refugee has been granted UHC on the same level as Polish citizens. So far, our health system is doing well in this extraordinary situation, but we could not do it alone. Big thanks to our partners from the EU for organizing a system of patients relocation, WHO and other organizations of the UN family for humanitarian aid, countless NGOs and individuals for ensuring the refugee with assistance and help they need. But providing an ongoing help is not everything. We also have to start thinking about recovery of health system in Ukraine. We must rebuild the destroyed infrastructure, deliver the equipment, and strengthen the medical health workforce. Let me finish with a declaration that Poland fully supports adoption of the draft resolution presented by Ukraine under point 16.3 of this agenda. We are also against Russian draft resolution under the same agenda item. This draft is only a cynical attempt to complicate our work and cause chaos in this assembly. This war must stop now. We demand that Russia immediately ceases its military actions in Ukraine and respects its responsibilities under international law. We also demand respect for international rules of humanitarian aid. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to remind again that there is another opportunity to speak on conference paper 6 and 8. So after saying this, I would like to invite our next speaker, Portugal, followed by Philippines and Thailand. This order. Portugal, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the honor to address the 75th World Health Assembly on behalf of Portugal in the item 16.3, and we align with the previous statement made by France on behalf of the European Union. Our hearts are with the people of Ukraine, suffering from a humanitarian and health emergency created by Russia's unprovoked and unjustified military aggression. As the past 2 years have shown, health emergencies not only appear unexpectedly, but also force upon us major challenges. This pandemic, as few health issues before, has dominated the global public health agenda and the global economy. Its political implications can be seen everywhere, as well as the impact in life and livelihood of the world population at most diverse levels. The onset of effective vaccines has therefore been a game changer, allowing the mitigation of economic, social and health consequences. Portugal considers the universal access to quality and affordable medical products is a fundamental element for the realization of human rights, namely the right to health and of universal health coverage. We would like to commend WHO's initiative ACT Accelerator as a good practice and underline our strong commitment to vaccine solidarity. Portugal is doing its share. We work with several countries in the international effort to fight COVID-19, including through the donation of vaccines and other necessary medical supplies. To date, we've delivered more than 6.8 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to Lusophone and other countries, 17 in total, in all continents. In some countries, we're the biggest donor of vaccines guaranteeing delivery and transportation. Considering only the African Portuguese-speaking countries, Portugal donations help these countries to have a higher vaccination coverage against COVID-19 than its region average. Chair, the right to health transcends borders and ought to be upheld in emergencies, situations of instability and humanitarian crisis. Health emergencies widen inequalities and exacerbate social and economic inequities. Vulnerable communities, including refugees and migrants, are amongst the worst affected, including by the impact on access to health services and livelihoods. Good health, access to quality health services and continuity of care through all stages of migration, during and beyond health emergencies, is crucial for safe, orderly and regular migration. Portugal has designed policies and enacted legislation making the promotion of migrants and refugees' health one of its priorities, guided by an inclusive, non-discriminatory, holistic approach. Furthermore, Portugal is a proud supporter of WHO's Global Health and Migration Programme. We are committed with the ambition of making health systems more resilient, believing in the power of cooperation and inclusion of the most vulnerable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Philippines, followed by Thailand, and then Australia. Philippines, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The Philippines thanks the Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee for the comprehensive report on the global response to the COVID-19 pandemic and the role of the WHO. We welcome recommendations on ensuring an integrated approach to health emergency management, not just in program implementation, but including strategies and approaches. We urge member states and the WHO to consider unifying different frameworks being used for global emergency preparedness and response to avoid fragmentation and duplication, and ensure ease of national adoption and implementation. The Philippines likewise welcomes recommendations to ensure that essential health care and social services are not hampered in times of emergency and conflict. These principles should be used not just for the current pandemic, but for all health emergencies brought about by conflict or climate change impact, such as natural disasters. The Philippines also welcomes recommendations to ensure responsiveness through flexible fund use at both global and local level, appropriately discussed in coordination with member states involved, and investments in interventions in all phases of disaster or emergency management. The current pandemic response has renewed the value and the leadership that the WHO plays in ensuring the health of all citizens of the world, and we support the further strengthening of the WHO Health Emergencies Program in fulfillment of its leadership role. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Thailand, followed by Australia and then Belarus. Thailand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thailand welcomes the report and appreciates the WHO work on health emergencies and the work of IOAC that committed to improve member states' capacity to respond to health emergencies. We have three recommendations to IOAC. First, IOAC continues its mandate with WHE program and further recommend the critical essential issues that need to be addressed to other ongoing working groups, notably the INB, the WGPR, which will be transformed to the WGIHR, and the WGSF in order to ensure synergies and avoid duplication. Second, WHO should seriously consider the recommendations from IOAC, and we request WHO DG Dr. Tedros to closely monitor the implementation of the recommendations through the established monitoring framework. Third, the Division for Preparedness under the WHE program should consider essential recommendations from IOAC, including that of prevention and response to sexual exploitation, assault, and harassment, to apply as a key element of UHPR. These will support the alignment between WHE program and member states' health emergency program. With regard to health emergencies, regional solidarity plays a key role. The CRF is a good example of collaboration within the region. Although the basis of effective health emergency response relies on resilient healthcare system in each country, rapid funding support at the initial phase of emergency is critical for immediate responses. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Australia, followed by Belarus, and then Malaysia. Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Australia recognises the central leadership of WHO in supporting member states in coordinating and responding to numerous severe, large-scale emergencies. While efforts continue to focus on dealing with the immediacy of the COVID-19 pandemic, we recognise and commend WHO's work to support a number of complex health emergencies, including in Ukraine. WHO's crucial role highlights the need for sustainable funding of the Health Emergencies Program at all levels, as well as contingency fund for emergency, as recommended by the Independent Oversight Advisory Committee. We appreciate the IOAC's report and strongly support action in response. We express our appreciation to the departing co-chairs for their leadership and welcome Professor Amar to take forward the work of the IOAC. Chair, this is an important report with clear recommendations that we encourage WHO and all member states to implement, particularly in respect to financing, the international health regulations and the WHO's role in the global health architecture. In particular, the WHO must be equipped with the necessary authority to coordinate pandemic prevention, preparedness and response, and member states must strengthen compliance and information sharing provisions under the IHR, as well as mechanisms to assess and develop preparedness capacities. We also echo the IOAC in emphasising that it is of paramount importance that WHO works together as one organisation across the three levels, with collective responsibility and shared accountability. WHO must also continue to prioritise the prevention of and response to sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment in all emergency responses. We appreciate WHO's sustained efforts to support member states strengthen their preparedness and response capacities as part of building resilient health systems. Chair, we cannot do these agenda items justice in the time we have today, and in closing we want to note our hope and expectation that the new Executive Board Standing Committee on Health Emergency Preparedness and Response will enable much more comprehensive member state engagement with the IOAC and support to the Health Emergencies Program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. About 10 minutes ago, I requested that those who like to take floor, please show the placard or come forward to the Secretariat. The added delegates on my list are Argentina, Venezuela, Germany, Togo, Colombia, Nicaragua. So if anyone is missing, please come forward. That will be straightforward. And Iran? I'm afraid. Please keep a placard high so that I think recognize. Jamaica. Jamaica is already on the list.
Yes, and so is Iran. Oh, yes.
Islamic Republic of Iran is on the list already. All right? So now, list is closed. List is closed. Very last minute. Can you recognize? Georgia. Now, list is closed. Firmly closed. Finally closed. Thank you very much. So let us start again. So the following order: Belarus, followed by Malaysia, then Uruguay. Belarus, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished colleagues, the Republic of Belarus highly appreciates the work of the WHO to respond to health emergencies. As mentioned in the presented report, we share WHO's concerns about the worsening humanitarian situation in Ukraine, as well as civilian casualties, destruction of social and economic infrastructure. The continuing conflict is leading to irreversible damage to the healthcare system and the health of the population. The government of Belarus supports WHO's efforts to provide assistance to the civilians of Ukraine, which are in a dire humanitarian situation, as within the country and beyond its borders. As mentioned previously at this assembly, our country is providing all necessary medical and other forms of assistance to persons arriving in Belarus from Ukraine. In this work, Belarus is cooperating closely with the UN organizations and agencies, as well as with the Belarusian Red Cross Society. Our border regions with Ukraine have established working groups to provide urgent humanitarian assistance to Ukrainian civilians who are in difficult living conditions. We have developed mechanisms for cooperation with interested agencies when it comes to registration and legalization of presence of these persons in Belarus, as well as providing them with employment and healthcare and humanitarian assistance in crossing the border into Belarus. We also are helping to settle Ukrainian citizens and helping them submit applications for asylum, providing them with refuge in Belarus. To provide employment to Ukrainian citizens, the Committee for Labor and Social Protection every week is drawing up a list of employers and provides information about vacant posts, as well as housing. In May of this year alone, 290 Ukrainians received Belarusian citizenship. Over the last 9 months, more than 3,500 Ukrainians received Belarusian citizenship. Given the procedures for examining these issues, we will not be going into the details of our decisions, but we would like to announce our co-authorship to the Russian draft resolution A75/A-Conf 8. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, let me remind you that we are going to discuss conference paper 6 and 7 at different opportunities. And I am, if I look at this long list of requests of floors, that will be likely afternoon. That is what I understand, or my best guess, unless you are each one is speaking only 1 minute. I think it's not fair enough. So we will continue the same speaking slot for regional group statement 4 minutes and member states 3 minutes. We will continue like this. If we think about this, and also I would like to hear a response from IOC chair and from secretariat. And also, we have requests from NGOs and other international organizations. So my best guess, my very best guess is that afternoon you have opportunity to talk about 2 conference papers, and then voting will occur in the afternoon. I hope it's not midnight, afternoon. So that is my best hope, wish. So this is, I'm wondering, I went too far, but I think that will perhaps too easy to understand what will go coming, right? So then, sorry to let you wait. Malaysia to take the floor, followed by Uruguay and Ukraine. Malaysia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Malaysia takes note of the documents related to public health preparedness and response, and thanks to the Director General for the comprehensive World Health Organization report and recommendation on the public health preparedness and response, WHO's work in health emergencies. Malaysia concurs with the report and recommendations made by the Executive Board on the preparedness, response, and coordination activities at the global and country level for active Grade 3 emergencies. Malaysia has fully adopted the strategic preparedness and response plan outlined by WHO and established the National Strategic Plan for Preparedness and Response to the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition, we have actively participated in a series of online and physical meetings hosted by WHO at the ministerial and working levels. Aligning with the WHO incident management system, we have also fully adopted the emergency response framework for the COVID-19 pandemic. In Malaysia, the governance, policy, planning, and coordination for the COVID-19 pandemic was escalated to the highest level under a multi-sectoral collaboration of related ministries led by the National Security Council, directly under the purview of the Honorable Prime Minister of Malaysia. Mr. Chair, respected delegates, Malaysia has had a successful COVID-19 vaccination program, and to date, 97.6% of the adult population have been fully vaccinated, surpassing 80% target, very much ahead of schedule. We are also proud to inform that Malaysia developed and used an end-to-end digital COVID-19 surveillance and patient management system. For health emergency preparedness and readiness, Malaysia also acknowledges WHO's effort in expanding the monitoring and evaluation of the international health regulation capacities, and we are one of the countries that completed the joint external evaluation in 2019. Finally, Malaysia recognizes the continuous efforts and support from WHO to implement the International Health Regulation 2005 core capacities and assures compliance with the regulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Uruguay, followed by Ukraine, then Bangladesh. Uruguay, you have the floor.
Buenos días.
A very good morning, Chairman. The COVID-19 pandemic has revealed the weaknesses and inequities in preparedness and response to health emergencies at global level. And as document 16 and additional documents show, we need to ensure a balanced focus and a timely response to face pandemics, not only because this is a moral requirement and a requirement for public health, but also because we need to establish effective control and containment measures which reduce the scope of these health crises. Any crisis is also an opportunity, and we as a generation have an opportunity now to think very more carefully about WHO's response to this emergency. And I think we've all learned a lot, and everything that's been done to respond to COVID-19 needs to be taken into account as input for generating general instruments and processes for management and response that can be adjusted according to the particular outbreak. And we think that we should keep the IOAC, which makes a direct and indirect contribution to defining roles and responsibilities and helping the WHO to play a leadership and global leader role. And according to the report of the IOAC, recurrent problems have arisen since it was set up, and so that's why the report should maintain a key role in conversations around the response to COVID-19. Clearly, WHO has a central role in global health architecture with strengthened leadership, but also it needs to have the tools to enable it to sustain its plans, both regulatory and financially. In the IOAC report, we read that we need to strengthen financing for preparedness and response, but that also should include resources for the strengthened alert and warning systems to enable countries to strengthen their early warning and detection systems. And there we need also investment in research and development and IT tools, bearing in mind the progress that's been made in that area at a global level. We'd like to indicate our concern for communication-related issues, particularly risk communication, because we believe that is a key aspect in political and technical dialogue, and indeed it's key in order to help the populations around the world understand what is being done. And we need to have we need to have changes in the relations between humans and animals, because that has become clear in this particular COVID-19 outbreak. We've seen that some vital rights of humanity have been restricted, including the right to free movement. So we need to have equality in terms of access to information and education, because that has a key preventive role, because that's key to mitigate and prevent future pandemics and emerging diseases. We need to have a paradigm shift in terms of humanity's behavior in this respect. And finally, we must say that we need to generate alternatives for educational plans for health professionals who are involved in the response to pandemics.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Ukraine, followed by Bangladesh, then Russian Federation. Ukraine, you have the floor.
Distinguished delegates, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine since 24 February targeted a catastrophic health crisis in my country. It's already led to a massive loss of life, injured and trauma among innocent people. According to the UN, the human cost has already amounted 4,000 people being killed and 5,000 injured, among them several hundred children, with the actual figures to be believed considerably higher. Vulnerable people, women, children, elderly, people with disabilities bear to burn this health emergency. The Russia's deliberate shelling destructive life-saving health services, including treatment of chronic conditions and disrupted essential medicine supply chains, severely restricting access to medicine. Russia invaders identify healthcare as an enemy. It's targeting hospitals, maternity, and other healthcare facilities, ambulances. Russia forces have destroyed more than 100 and damaged more than 500 healthcare facilities in 3 months. Mines and explosive devices continue to pose a threat to people's safety, leading to injuries, aiming and emotional distress. Living under constant shelling in a climate of fear has taken a toll on Ukrainian mental health. Target use of rape as a weapon of the war remains significantly underreported, leaving incredible mental scare of the victim. Extent and long-term impact of psychiatric morbidity and other forms of mental health problems are so huge they need additional assessment. By blocking grain export from Ukraine, which is one of the leading global grain producers, Russia exacerbates food security crisis, future jeopardizing health and nutrition throughout the world. Mr. Chair, this unprecedented health emergency crisis by the Russian aggression requires a firm and consolidating response from the international community. We are grateful to the World Health Organization, Regional Office for Europe, and Office in Ukraine for their efforts to respond to the health emergency in Ukraine targeted by Russia's war. To address the severe scope of the nature of the health emergencies in Ukraine, my country, together with a group of 48 WHO member states, initiated a draft resolution. Its objective to continue supporting the health sectors of Ukraine and refugee receiving and hosting countries to ensure that they remain functional and accessible to all who need assessment medical services. Your support for this resolution will be a significant contribution to the effective implementation of the WHO mandate to protect people and health emergencies. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next speaker is Bangladesh, followed by Russian Federation, then United Kingdom. Bangladesh, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Bangladesh appreciates the IOC for the comprehensive report and a wide range of recommendations. During the pandemic, the weaknesses of global health architecture and governance, as well as the challenges of the health systems, have come to the fore of discussion. So we flag that the recommendations of the report put forth the gravity of concern, for which we need global solidarity and inclusive-based approach, enhanced support, assistance, and cooperation to strengthen the health systems of the countries should remain the cornerstone of our approach in securing the health for all. While we comment the recommendations, the paragraphs 33, 34, 46, and 48 draw our attention. Paragraph 33 that refers to a strengthening process for fairer allocation of vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics calls for business as usual approaches. In this regard, the calls made by the developing countries in various forums, including in the WGPR, is apparently missing. For example, the matter of equitable access to health emergency response tools could have been well reflected. Role of WHO could also be made clearer to support the countries, particularly the developing countries. Similarly, in paragraph 34, which calls for further financial support to ACTA, the requirements of the developing country could have been stressed. Restructuring of the governing structure of ACTA shall be done through a member state-led decision-making process, where in particular, adequate representation of the developing countries must be ensured. On the other hand, paragraphs like 46 and 48 incorporate IHR strengthening amendments and reforms of the Executive Board. Broader explanatory views would have been useful in better understanding of these paragraphs. We know our limitations and challenges in the context of health emergencies of international concern. Uneven impact leading to unequal recovery manifests that there is diverse need and concern for the member states. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Russian Federation, followed by United Kingdom and then United States of America. Russian Federation, you have the floor.
Уважаемый господин председатель.
Distinguished chair, distinguished colleagues, we note the importance of the report of the DG. It contains information about serious multifaceted problems with the Ukrainian healthcare system, including degradation of assistance to patients with communicable and non-communicable diseases, a rise in violence, and inability of children to receive routine vaccinations. All of this demonstrates the unsatisfactory condition of the Ukrainian healthcare system long before February 2022. The situation was complicated in 2014 when the aggression of Kiev against its own citizens in Donbass meant that Ukrainian troops killed and injured tens of thousands of civilians, including children. They damaged or destroyed hundreds of civilian buildings and works. These attacks and other atrocities are well documented. Many of them have been described in the current report. We understand the scale and duration of the crisis. Russia is therefore making serious efforts to restore the rights of the inhabitants of Donbass to healthcare. Starting in 2014, Russia has been sending more than 400 humanitarian convoys to Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics and have provided more than 20,000 tons of humanitarian cargo, including 5,000 tons of medicine and medical equipment in the amount of over $300 million. Russia has helped Donbass restore medical institutions which currently are functioning normally and providing all forms of medical assistance. Russian medics are also working in zones with humanitarian crisis and are ensuring prevention of tuberculosis and HIV. Since the end of February of this year, Russia has taken in 1.5 million refugees, and since 2014, overall, Russia has provided refuge to 3.5 million Ukrainians who are provided with necessary medical and psychological assistance, including medication for long-term use. The children of refugees are in schools. University students are able to continue the professional training. Wounded Ukrainian soldiers also are receiving treatment and they're able to communicate with their families. We asked the Director General of the WHO to visit in person in order to learn about Russia's efforts to resolve the healthcare humanitarian crisis. Russia has always defended human rights, including those related to healthcare, and has rejected the politicization of issues under WHO's remit. For field doctors, ethnicity, beliefs, and native language of patients are irrelevant. The lofty goal of the WHO and all member states is to help countries provide the highest attainable level of health for all peoples of the world. This is the focus of our efforts. In this context, we believe it's important resolutions on health emergencies to provide a comprehensive, practical humanitarian solution applicable to all regions of the world. Many countries have expressed their interest in this document and are expecting expert assistance from WHO. We believe that this approach ought to form the basis of all of our decisions today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is United Kingdom, followed by United States of America, and then Barbados. United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Tragically, the number of people affected by health emergencies globally is on a relentless upward trend, from Afghanistan to Yemen to Tigray, and of course in Ukraine. In all these countries, it is clear that the need for WHE is indisputable. The UK will speak to Ukraine later this morning, but I must recognise the important statement made by Ukraine just now, and I also must object to the gross misinformation set out just now by Russia in its comments on Ukraine, given the terrible human suffering caused by Russia's illegal and inhumane war. We are very grateful for the work of the IOAC under the leadership of Dr. Felicity Harvey and Geeta Rao Gupta, and the detailed report provided by the committee. Their independent expert insights are critical to strengthening the health emergencies programme. We welcome the recommendations provided by the IOAC, endorsing its view that WHE can and should be strengthened, and that this can be achieved with a focus on areas including alignment between the three levels of the organisation, enhanced risk oversight, and country-level staffing. Of course, this must be underpinned by reliable funding, and the UK endorses the increase in assessed contributions proposed by the Working Group on Sustainable Finance. And the UK is also proud to be WHO's largest contributor of core voluntary funding that WHO can assign to its own priorities. We reiterate the importance of strong, resilient health systems with integrated public health functions, including surveillance, to prepare for, prevent, and better withstand health emergencies. Also, the need for WHE to improve their coordination and collaboration with other WHO departments, including better understanding the barriers to recruitment and retention within WHO, and to continue to fast-track its work to prevent sexual exploitation and abuse, which must continue to be a top priority. It's now over 2 years since the COVID-19 pandemic began, and this Assembly should be a moment of reflection on the progress we have made. The intergovernmental negotiating body on a new instrument is now in full swing, and a plan is in place to amend the IHR to make them more agile and facilitate compliance. We must ensure our lesson learning translates into concrete action. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker is United States of America, followed by Barbados and then Islamic Republic of Iran. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The United States thanks the Independent Oversight Advisory Committee for their report on preparedness and response for public health emergencies. We appreciate their renewed commitment to continue monitoring and providing oversight of WHO's work on health emergencies and for supporting WHO's central role in the global health architecture in consultation with member states. We encourage WHO to take action on the committee's recommendations for improving accountability for emergency management, increasing the capacity and authority of the WHO Health Emergencies Program, and identifying available, predictable, and sustainable funding. The U.S. continues its efforts to end the acute phase of the pandemic and continues to support collaboration with WHO, member states, and all relevant stakeholders to advance efforts to build a global health architecture that's more sustainable and adaptable. The U.S. again stresses the importance of preventing and responding to sexual exploitation and abuse and harassment in humanitarian responses. We also recognize the significant increase in mental disorders worldwide during the COVID-19 pandemic and commend the WHO for its efforts to support technical programs to enhance mental health and psychosocial support in emergencies. Specifically, with regards to the COVID pandemic, we recognize that strengthening vaccine confidence and addressing the role of mis and disinformation in the decline of vaccine uptake and demand is critical to achieving our vaccination goals. And we remain committed to strengthening our efforts to address this growing problem and encourage member states to work together to combat declines in global vaccine confidence. We're also grateful for WHO's continued efforts to strengthen coordination with the wider humanitarian system. Additionally, we appreciate WHO's efforts to have strong surveillance and response systems in place for polio, with an expanded role for health emergencies and polio surveillance. And as part of the accelerated polio transition process, we encourage close collaboration with the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, immunization, vaccines, and biologicals, and other actors to ensure and sustain certification level surveillance for polio. So we're proud of our support to the health emergency programs and call on member states to join us in championing WHO's health emergency and humanitarian efforts in fragile, conflict-affected, and vulnerable settings at this World Health Assembly and beyond. Finally, we appreciate the statement by Ukraine and feel it's important to reject the lies and disinformation of the Russian Federation and look forward to more conversations on that topic this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Barbados, followed by Islamic Republic of Iran, then Canada. I invite Barbados to take the floor.
Honorable Chair and distinguished delegates, the Government of Barbados congratulates the Secretariat on their continued work on public health emergencies, preparedness and response, and concurs that the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed shortcomings in the pandemic preparedness and response and a shortfall in health security and equity across the world. However, there have been numerous examples of global solidarity and collaboration and remarkable progress in research and development. Barbados will continue to support initiatives to improve preparedness and response to public health emergencies, including full implementation of the International Health Regulation, strengthening of human resources, and an integration of lessons learned from the COVID-19 pandemic. We welcome the IOC's guidance and request the Secretariat to work to close the gap with respect to defining roles and responsibilities in emergencies by major offices, accountability framework, and reporting line of functions supporting emergency management, enhancing organizational structure and systems to support WHO's work on emergencies, improving human resources capacity and management, increasing financing, especially to small island developing states with fragile health systems, promoting the tenets of international health regulations 205IR and country preparedness, advancing WHO's role in the global response to COVID-19 and future pandemics, planning for future global architecture for pandemic preparedness and response. The lessons learned must be translated into action and incorporated into updated national action plans to further strengthen health systems. PAHO has been instrumental in providing technical assistance, laboratory support and preparedness, staffing for surveillance and contact tracing, and personal protective equipment. Finally, Barbados will continue to explore further South-South cooperation agreements to boost our national public health responses. To date, we have had several kind donations and fostered agreements for staffing both in the medical, nursing, and laboratory technology fields. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Islamic Republic of Iran, followed by Canada, and then Ethiopia. Islamic Republic of Iran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We appreciate IOAC for organizing the report related to Agenda Item 16.1. Considering the COVID-19 pandemic impacts on health, economic, social, and security aspects, the pandemic demonstrated vulnerabilities and shortcomings in the national and international preparedness and response capacities. 3 pandemic years has reiterated how much important is the joint activities and concerted efforts between Communicable Diseases and Health Emergencies Institute in different countries. For example, in the area of technical joint ventures and technology exchanges to manufacture medical countermeasures, especially sufficient vaccines, as the best preventive measure against the pandemic and other emerging and re-emerging diseases. We believe the WHO Hub for Pandemic and Epidemic Intelligence in Berlin is a good initiative and can assist WHO for a more effective management, monitoring, and coordination of the future public health emergencies of international concern and pandemics. One of the strategies that Islamic Republic of Iran has taken in order to translate the pandemic lessons learned into action is working around an integrated influenza pandemic preparedness plan and COVID-19 national preparedness and response plan through a national consultative workshop with WHO country office and WHO Eastern Mediterranean region and headquarters support. We think a graded approach to public health emergency of international concern declarations based on risk assessment could be worthwhile, but it needs a scientific-based approach by allocation sufficient work and consultations. With regard to member states' compliance with IHR amendments and implementation, this is a very delicate and sensitive area which need a lot of face-to-face elaborations and consultations. If such a process would proceed in an agile way, it might endanger WHO's spirit as a humanitarian and collaborative organization and transform its role into a supervisory security organization, which could be harmful for the organization in the coming years. Thank you, Mr. Chair.